use ideas from improvisation to help lots of different companies come up with new ideas to collaborate, to present. And we believe that there should be more joy and less fear in the world. And I want to share with you a strategy to get at that, to potentially achieve that. Here's one thing that's true right now. I don't know what I'm going to say next. I have a plan, sort of. I have an idea for the next 17 minutes, but I don't know exactly what's going to come out of my mouth. And I think that reality that I'm experiencing up here is also true for all of us at almost all moments of our lives. We don't live by a script. We don't live by a plan. We may have a plan, but it changes when you come in contact with the world. Sometimes those moments are sort of just random and not hugely impactful. And sometimes they're bigger moments. My son Jack's been doing some modeling recently. He was walking out on stage in front of 1,000 people. That was a big moment for him. And as he said, that moment, his beat really started hurting. Some moments are big, right? When you have to do an important presentation, when you have to have an important meeting, when you're charged with coming up with a new idea, when you have to hit a jump shot in a game, when you have to hit a golf ball, when you have to do a talk, when you have to get on stage in an improv show. These moments are all full of uncertainty. And here's what often is the advice we get in those moments. We get the advice of do your best. We get the advice, somebody says to you, your boss says to you, we need a big idea right now. Does anyone have any earth-shattering ideas? We need something really important. You've got to nail this. This is a huge moment for you. Don't mess it up. A lot on the line. This advice, this pressure that we put on ourselves does not contribute to this notion of more joy and less fear. It oftentimes takes away from it. I want to share with you a different piece of advice from a guru that we have had a chance to work with, that I have had a chance to meet on a number of occasions. A man named Keith Johnstone. He's an Englishman who lives in Calgary. And this is the advice he gives to people that are walking on stage. Now, improvisers, as you may know, how many people have seen improv? All right. How many people have performed improv? How many people would like to get a chance to perform improv in about 10 minutes? There we go. Good. This is the advice he gives to people who are walking onto stage, to an uncertain environment, to an expectant audience, ready to be entertained, with no script. Here's what he tells them. He says, doing your best is disastrous. Be average. Don't try your best. I saw him in May of this year in Southern California. He said this, do you think Mozart was trying his best? Now, this advice, for me, when I first heard it, was a paradox. I was like, what do you mean? And he is very serious about this. He means that when you try your best, you take yourself out of the present moment. You try and forecast, what this might look like in front of the audience. You try and censor your first idea, and instead try and come up with something clever. As a strategy, doing your best is, in Johnstone's words, and from the improv experience that we've had over the last 15 years, not the best idea. Because it tends to create more fear, more judgment, more self-judgment, and it takes you out of the present moment. This idea of not trying your best, of just trying, actually can sometimes have interesting results. I had a chance a couple of years ago to go to the British Library in London. And if you've been there, or if you're going there, I would recommend that you go and see the exhibits of some of the music there. There is some music, lyrics, by the Beatles. And I had some pictures here. Here's the question. This is, it's a little hard to read. This is, I think, A Hard Day's Night up there on the top. Here's Yesterday. These guys just wrote it down. That's a nice birthday card. I think this was done at some kid's birthday. Does that look like he's really trying hard? I think he's actually just trying. So that's the idea that I want to share with you. This notion that trying really hard is counterproductive and actually something that you should take pressure off yourself and try not to do. Let me share a quick anecdote around that may help shed some more light on this idea. This is around this idea of also less fear. So there's Phil Donahue right there. How many people remember the Donahue show? You guys, you do? Some of you are too young for this, but that's fair enough. This reference doesn't really reach a lot of 20-somethings anymore. So I was living in New York City in 1994, and I went to the Donahue show. I went to a taping of it. And this is an example of this kind of moment where I was really trying to do great work. Phil was up there kind of doing a show and, getting out into the audience, as you can see here. This was not I did not take this picture. I got this off the internet. Here's what was happening for me. I was thinking of what I was going to say, and I was going to do an amazing job. I had all kinds of really witty, impressive comments. And I was trying to get his eye, I was trying to get his attention. I had rehearsed 4 or 5 different things I might say. I was really ready. And as Phil was sort of migrating through the crowd, he comes up to me, or after a while, about 2/3 of the way through the show, and he sticks his microphone right in my face. And in that moment, I really had a visceral experience. Because here's what happened to me in just a nanosecond. I started saying to myself, you know what? Actually, that comment I was about to make, I'm not sure it's as impressive as it sounded in my head. They applauded, the audience applauded for the last few comments, but you know what? I don't think they're going to applaud for mine. In fact, this thing that I was about to say, you know what? It's not really raising to the level of excellence. So I'm not going to say anything. And Phil, with this sort of steely glance, gave me about half a second and then took it away and went to somebody else. That moment, I made that choice because I got in my own head. I was trying too hard. I was trying to be perfect. I was trying to say something exceptional, rather than just saying something that I believed. I gave in to that moment of fear. Here is what we think. We think when you judge yourself, when you imagine that the audience will not appreciate what you're going to say, when the boss says, does anyone have any brilliant ideas? You have an idea, but it doesn't quite rise to the level of brilliance. We get in our own way. We get fearful of what people will think, that we won't be quite good enough. And this is not helpful. This is not a good strategy. So this notion of not trying your best can help with this. It can help reduce fear. Because if you don't think you have to be amazing, then you're going to give it a shot. If the bar is super high, like the thing I'm about to say is incredible, you're going to censor yourself. This idea of less fear is something that we think is a powerful idea. As is this idea of more joy. And instead of talking about that, I would like to have a brief experience. So here's what's going to happen. Karen, are you still there? You ready? Come on, here's Karen. How about a hand for Karen? We rehearsed this very briefly in the back. We're going to do an aria. I'm just kidding. That's not going to. We're going to play a quick game, and then you're going to try it out. All right? Because we want to give you a quick moment of joy. All right? Here's how this works, Karen. We're going to raise our arms in one of 3 positions. Right? We can go up, we can go to the right, we can go to the left. Our job is just to randomly do this. Okay? Now, if we happen to match, we're going to give a high 10. All right? That's how this works. You're going to do this in a moment. Now, I don't have any liability insurance. So when you in a moment stand up and play this, you're going to want to make sure you don't knock anyone right in the face. All right? I just want to give you a brief experience of what it feels like to manufacture a tiny bit of joy. We'll see if it works. All right, Karen, you ready? Here we go. Ready? Here we go. Just randomly. Don't match me. We'll see what happens. Here we go. And go. There we go. All right. Is stand up right now. Find someone who came wow, look at that. I hope you weren't trying too hard. And by the way, I learned that the microphone wasn't on, so who knew? The idea of not trying too hard, just doing something, rather than being, okay, imagine if I was like, try really hard, make sure you don't mess it up. It would not have been nearly as delightful. I don't quite know why that's so fun, but it always is. So these ideas of less fear, this notion that, you know what, I don't know what's about to happen, but it's going to be interesting, right? This idea of more joy. I'm going to commit to trying something in the spirit of experimentation. Those are ideas that we think are helpful, and one of the ways that you can get closer to that is actually not trying your best. So here's what I would love to do. I would love to get 5 volunteers. There's one. Come on up. Yeah, there we go. I asked the president, would you mind coming on up here as well? President Shreshi, yes. Okay, there we go. Yeah. There we go. I need that. That's 2. We need 3 more. Yeah, come on up. Yes, ma'am. Good. There was another one. Yeah, come on up. All of, now, here's what's happening for some of you. Yeah, one more. Yes, yes, ma'am. Come on up here. There we go. Just form a line right here, facing the audience. You didn't know you were going to be doing this, did you? This is exciting. Well, you sat in the front row, but you never know. All right, come on up here. Here's what's going to happen. And again, here's what I'm going to ask you, okay? I'm going to ask you not to try your best. All right? Don't get super clever. Don't try to succeed, okay? Just be in the moment. Listen, pay attention. Here's what's going to happen. This group is going to transform, and they already are transforming into an expert on a subject that we'll get from you in a moment. They are going to answer your questions about this subject, speaking one word at a time, forming complete and hopefully grammatically correct sentences about this subject. All right, are you happy to be here, right? Yeah, look at them. How about another hand for this group here? This is impressive. All right, so I'm going to start the program here, but you'll have a chance to ask questions as well. Now, again, don't try too hard. If you try too hard, you're going to start planning what you're going to say. You're going to get way ahead of yourself. All you have to do is kind of listen to what comes before you. All right? Let's see, here's some potential things they could be an expert on. What are some options? Just yell out a few. Giraffes. We'll take giraffes. You don't hear a lot about giraffes. All right, so again, we'll go down the line. And these are full sentences, right? So they have words like the and a, as well as giraffe. All right, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Dr. Tall. Dr. Tall, thank you so much for coming. How did you, we'll ask you a couple questions about your background. How did you get interested in giraffes?
When?
Again, here's the thing, don't try when.
Saw.
When saw
Zoo.
When saw zoo. Yeah, they're so excited. They forgot. You know what? They got excited when they saw zoo. So you saw zoo and you were like, there it is. That's what I want to study. Now, giraffes are tall, right? Why are giraffes so tall? Help us understand the biology of why a giraffe is so tall.
Neck.
Long neck.
Neck, long neck. Yeah. Yeah, okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. So, neck, long neck. Right. That's fair enough. So, talk to us a little bit about the diet of a giraffe. We're going to get to your questions in a moment. What do giraffes like to eat? And feel free to use, non-nouns as well. That's fair. So, what do giraffes like to eat? Grass can
Things.
Grass can things. Okay, yeah. So here's what I'm going to ask you guys. Here's what I'm going to ask you. And I can get a hand for them. Yeah. Again, this is an experiment. Sometimes when we try, we're not really being changed by what comes before. So here's my request. Just kind of listen to what's come before and just add to it. Right? There we go. All right. So one more question for me, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. What sort of what do giraffes like to do besides eat and sort of walk around? What do they? Tell us more about their habits and their what they like.
Chasing.
Looking.
Mating.
Sure. Are chasing, mating, looking are
One of.
yeah.
There.
Eat.
Okay, fair enough. So we got time for a couple questions from you all. Yeah, questions from the audience. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, what color is a giraffe's tongue? What color is the tongue of a giraffe? What color is the tongue of a giraffe?
Pink.
What are giraffes? What's the main predator of a giraffe?
Gravity.
Other questions that you might have? We have time for a couple more. What else is on your mind?
Where do they live?
Where do giraffes live? Yeah, because we don't see them a lot. So where do giraffes live?
Skyscrapers.
Backyard.
Zoos.
Yeah. Backyards and zoos. All right, yeah, question from you. Yes. What school did this doctor go to? Yeah, we'll start off figuring that a little bit, aren't we? Tell us about your educational background. It wasn't Portland State, obviously. So where did you go to school?
Portland State.
Okay. Oh, excuse me. Listen, we just have time for one more question from the audience. Yes? Describe a day in the life of a giraffe. Yeah, you could do this. He's like, we could do this. Yeah, what happens in the life, a day in the life?
Sometimes.
Giraffes.
Like.
Lay down.
Sometimes giraffes like lay down.
Don't choke on the lawn.
Okay, yeah. So just one word at a time. Okay? Yeah, sometimes giraffes, they like to lay down. What else do they like to do? Eat.
Leaves.
Chase.
Stretch.
Chase, stretch. Okay. All right, this is going. Yeah. And
Look around.
look around. Okay, there we go. So I do have just one last question before you guys go. And by the way, thank you so much for coming out here. I think they have achieved the less fear. They've certainly created some more joy. Last question for you all. What's the one thing that you tell children when they ask you about a giraffe? What's the most important thing that kids should know about giraffes?
You.
Tall.
Yeah, you tall. A hand for us. Thank you. idea that we want to share with you is this notion of not trying your best. I think we all achieve that up here. And part of what that, sometimes what happens up here when we've played this game before is people get really clever. And instead of sort of being changed by what comes before them, they say a bunch of really interesting nouns. It's like jaguar, asteroid, superstar, right? When you don't try your best, actually, you simply are changed by what happens. You kind of give the story what it needs, you pay attention, and you're not so worried about kind of doing amazing work. When you watch improv, that's the best stuff. It's when people just are in the moment, when they're really making it up right there. And the only way they can do that is just to give it a shot. They don't have time to have a judgment about it. Instead of wishing or instead of imagining, do I like this? Was this good? They just deal with what is. So this idea of not trying your best, we think, is something that you should consider. All right? Instead of putting a lot of pressure on yourself, just be in this moment and don't try your best. We were doing this once in front of an audience of 300 or 400 people, and it was about surfing. And it went through the line, and these people were like, where should you surf, was the question. And the answer was, you should always surf near the, and it came to this last guy, he was just like, wasn't quite sure what to do. You should always surf near the ocean. The audience did just what you did. They were like, bravo, absolutely, no doubt about it. If he had said jaguar, you and they would have gone, no. When you don't try your best, you come up with interesting stuff. That's the idea that I want to share with you. I would like to once again thank our participants and I hope you have a great rest of your evening. Thank you very much.